So this next question I get asked often, but this question I'm now being asked by the same individual who's now asked me same question about 20 times and often goes on to my YouTube videos and then gets very angry because I haven't given him the answer, which his ego is looking for. So here's the question. Why did we fall asleep and fracture into billions of thought forms, spirit beings? And why did God allow us to do this? Why would God allow this to happen? Now, you've heard Ken answer this question. You've heard many a spiritual teacher answer this question. Rupert Spiro's answered this question even recently. So let me give you my spin on it. The answer is in A Course in Miracles, chapter 4, The Illusions of the Ego, section 3, Ego and False Autonomy. There's the answer. Go read that and read it and read it and read it and read it again until you get it. Now, let me give you the Luigi Poo version, the answer to an answer that shouldn't be asked and therefore cannot be answered. But I'm going to give you my spin on it, and I'm going to hopefully bring you into a new state of awareness. And of course, if you're asking it from an egoic point of view, believing you're this answer is not going to be sufficient for your ego. But if you realize you are spirit and you realize you are the dreamer, then this answer has a very different spin. But okay, you've asked me as a human being, why did God let you fall asleep and dream of this dream? So your question contains fundamental errors. You're getting angry with me because I'm not answering your question, but your question contains fundamental errors based on the false perception of true reality. You still think of God as a being and you as a being, and God let you dream this shit up. And that's why no matter what I say, the answer cannot have anything meaningful for you. It's not a meaningful answer. For you, the temporal perceiver of your dream, both the localization and that which observes all of it. Because you're trapped in the duality of yourself fractured and somewhere out there and you can't remember it and you cannot get in touch with it is the source energy which you've called God. Now let's explore this question a little deeper. Let's explore this erroneous question you've asked, for which there is no answer, but you're insisting on one. Let me tell you why your answer is fundamentally flawed. Because you're asking, the question is preloaded. It's preloaded with assumptions. And you're making the false assumption that there is a past in which you fell asleep and something outside you, God, let you fall asleep and let you dream of this. Or in the past, those that believe God is dreaming, in the past, God fell asleep and fractured into all these beings in the past and allowed himself to forget what he is. So that's the first false assumption. You're assuming there's a past. You're not realizing that right now, the fact that you haven't returned to pure awareness, you're choosing again to fall asleep. In every single moment, you choose to believe you're a body and there's other bodies and you're separated from them. And you exist in a universe where you've been plonked into by something that puts you here, and that something is God and it's outside you. Fundamentally flawed question based on past and on separation. The second fundamental question, a flaw in your question, is you're assuming it happened. Because you say, but I'm experiencing this. This feels real. Knock on wood. It didn't happen. No matter what happened in your dream last night, when you wake up in the morning, it never happened. Yes, you dreamt. Yes, for a second you fell asleep for whatever period of time, but it's timeless. That's why you look at your watch every time you wake up in the morning, because you don't realize how many hours have passed. You assume you've slept your 4, 6, or 8 or whatever hours you slept. But you have no idea because you weren't present while you dreamt. While you dreamt, you were stuck in the contents of your dream, unaware that you were the one dreaming it all up. And while you dreamt, you took your dream quite seriously because you localized in your dream and the contents of your dream appeared real to you. And you took it very seriously. When you woke up in the morning, the contents were gone and the localization was gone. And so there's a false assumption, your second false assumption, that it happened. It never really happened in absolute reality. How do you know? Return to silent stillness, be aware of being aware, and you realize awareness is all there is. Nothing's ever happened beyond this awareness. Whatever seems to appear and disappear isn't real. What is always there, the awareness of awareness, the I amness, the infinite lightness of being, that's the only truth. So it never happened. Thirdly, and this is I've alluded to in the first part, is you're assuming you're a separate entity. God is outside you, that there's a place where God resides as a being, heaven, and we all little beings, and there's Jesus holding his hand on his right-hand side, and Mary and other angels, and you're assuming from a separate point of view that you went off and hid in your corner and traveled to nowhere and created a galaxy or a universe, and God allowed you, a separate being from you, allowed you to separate yourself from that separate being even further. So your question is fundamentally flawed and loaded with assumptions. And then if you really get to the bottom of it, in your question, there's another question. And that question is, what was the purpose for falling asleep? Is there a purpose in falling asleep and dreaming the shit up? No. And is there a cause for me to fall asleep? What caused me to fall asleep? Did I sniff some unicorn dust and it put me to sleep? Did I snort a fairy and then I fell asleep and forgot what I am and forgot what God is? The fundamental assumption is flawed. Because you're looking for a purpose for falling asleep, and you're looking for meaning in your dream. There is no meaning in dreaming. And there is no purpose in falling asleep. But when you fell asleep, the memory of self, the memory of God, calls you to remember yourself, and there's a purpose in now that you've taken form. And the purpose now is to remember self. There's no real cause for falling asleep, other than there's a story which we tell in A Course in Miracles, and that you chose to be special. But in my understanding, we simply innocently fell asleep and dreamt of nothing. And even falling asleep is a story, because we're just pure energy. There's nowhere where God ends and you begin. It's just pure energy ever extending. And a part of that energy had a glitch, a dream. And it imagined it was this, all of it. And yet, when we return to silent stillness, present moment awareness, none of us exists. You know that when you return to silent stillness and that awareness is all pervading and it's timeless and you're in the I amness, and even the I amness dissolves and there's just pure silence, and that silence flows, and as it flows, it's just the joyous lightness of being. It's the only way I explain it. Then I run out of words, and even those words are concessions. Then you realize it never happened. And now you understand why in the Course it says, Course of Miracles, it says, God's unaware of our dream. God's unaware of the content of our dream. God's only aware the extension of God, his Son, seemed to have dreamt something for a tiny mad instant. And it's over. And even though you're continuing to extend the joyous lightness of being, a part of you is trapped in a loop. And that loop is called a memory. And a memory seems to be of a past, but never happened. And when you forgive yourself for having dreamt up this disaster of biblical distortions, when you forgive yourself, which is the recognition it never really happened, it ceases to trigger you. And while you're playing out the rest of the script, looking at the script from the end point back on itself, it matters not, because now at the end of the movie, you're aware I am. And no matter what happened, it has not changed the defenseless, innocent, pure, joyous likeness of being I am, as that which is the extension, the Holy Son of God. For as long as you believe that someone's let you do this, you see yourself as someone let me do this, separation. And then you ask that question from a duality point of view, assuming duality is real. Your question is flawed. Now, without any presumptions, with any assumptions, with any ideologies and ideas, take full responsibility for it, first of all. And then second of all, with no preconceived concepts of a God that let you fall asleep, ask the question again. Or forever shut the fuck up. Which is another way to say, be still and know I am. But since you insist on asking the question, because your ego isn't satisfied, perhaps shut the fuck up is the perfect way to answer you. Has that offended your ego? Have you taken me seriously now? You're going to grow with me. I love you nevertheless, for you are love. You could be angry. Matters not. I'm happy. I'm present. I'm here. And yes, as a young man, when I was angry at the world, I used to scream up at the heavens until I got to that point where I realized there must be another way to see this. Ask that. Ask that. And then be still long enough to hear the answer flow through you, for you, and for the rest of your fractured cells. If that still hasn't satisfied your egoic need to understand from a loaded, already self-determined point of view, then nothing's going to answer that. And in truth, there is no answer because you're still doing it to yourself every time you think you're suffering your dream of forgetfulness.